Let's imagine you have a new job and your accountability is to keep the company safe and sound. And your job is the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. And the question is, what should you do during your first 100 days? Because the first 100 days might be very, very important. And we have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, JC Gaillard.
Thank you. Many thanks for inviting me on the podcast. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you very much
for
delighted
being to speak
with
around
us.
The role of the CISO, the first 100 days and everything that goes around it.
Yeah, perfect. Very good. So let's get straight into it. You wrote the book that the first 100 days are extremely important, the first 100 days of the new CISO, a leadership guide to lasting impact. So when we now look at the first 100 days, many people say it's all about orientation, it's about getting settled in, but it all remains usually quite superficial. If anyone would ask you, what was your main motivation to write this book? What would you tell them?
My main motivation is that I see too many CISOs stuck in routines that don't work. Mm-hmm. I see too many CISOs leaving after a couple of years, because out of frustration, because they think the business doesn't get it, because they think that they don't get things in motion. That to me is the cornerstone of what I've been calling the cybersecurity spiral of failure, one of the cornerstones of it anyway. The first 100 days of the new CISO, the book you kindly shown on the screen just before, is actually one in a series of 3. And it's part of a thinking process, a writing process that started over 10 years ago, around 2015, 2016, because to be honest, when I started consulting, I was absolutely shocked by what I was seeing in many large firms. My background is not in consulting. I spent 20 years of my life working at Paribas until it became BNP Paribas, then at Rabobank. I'm French and British.
Yeah, I saw that. And you also were a member of the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council. Very impressive. So,
yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm just, I spent 35 years of my life living in London. I'm French and British. I fell into consulting effectively 15 years ago as a matter of exiting out of Rabobank, where I was the chief security officer for the international division. But I'm not a consultant by trade as such. But when I started consulting, I was absolutely shocked by what I was seeing in many large firms in terms of maturity levels and in terms of the type of problems they were facing. Large firms that would have been having large information security practices for the best part of the 20 years before, large firms that might have been sending people to conferences to tell the world how to organize around information security. And then one day you're called in and you look around and you say, right, okay, what's going on here? And that's the background of my thinking process, the background of my research, and the background of my work effectively in terms of what I've been writing about. So I started writing articles on the Corix Partners blog. That's the company I founded around 2015 approximately. Mm-hmm. And then I amalgamated those into a compilation of articles, and then it finally became the Cybersecurity Leadership Handbook, which was published around 2023 in its current format.
What would you say when we get to the gist of this? What is the nature of the modern CISO's role? What is the real nature of what CISOs should do today?
What makes the role absolutely difficult is that many CISOs are trapped in an impossible position. One day they're expected to be credible in front of the board, the next in front of regulators, the next in front of pen testers, the next in front of developers, the next in front of management, the next in front of the staff, etc. Across the large enterprise, the role has become completely impossible, and they're struggling because of that. Okay, they felt trapped. They feel frustrated, and after a couple of years, 2 to 3 years on average, they end up moving to another job. That creates the conditions I was talking about around the spiral of failure. There is not a lot you achieve in 2 to 3 years in any large firms. Large firms are too complex. They're too political. They're too territorial. They are siloed by essence. You don't achieve much in terms of transformative effort around anything in 2 to 3 years. And that's the main problem. Okay, around cybersecurity in many organizations. Business short-termism has trapped CISOs in that sort of dynamic, and that's the essence, by which cybersecurity effectively maturity levels have remained low. We're in a situation around cybersecurity where constant focus on short-termism has led to long-term stagnation, if you want. That's a little bit what I talk around in the spiral of failure, and that's what makes the role of the CISOs difficult.
Excellent. You talk about the 666 framework which you developed. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I found that part of the book really, really handy, because that's something you can put in place immediately. What is the 666 framework that you developed?
Yes, that's at the heart of the first 100 days, and it's about understanding that everything matters here. Every single day matters. Every minute of it matters. Okay. And it's all about listening, and listening. And that's what I say in the first 100 days. The CISOs have to understand that it's not about coming into the job, knowing what has worked elsewhere, trying to replicate, things you've seen elsewhere, things you've done elsewhere, coming in with your pet project, your pet product, your pet consultants. That's not what it's about. What it's about is listening, and listening. Cybersecurity has been around in one shape or another in large organizations for the best part of the last 30 years. Understand that, understand that there is no such thing as a green field. You're stepping into a situation, a context. You're talking to execs who have been here for a long time, for many of them. Listen, and listen. That's the first 6 days, effectively. Listen. And try to build and co-construct with those guys what the cybersecurity narrative is going to be. That's the first 6 weeks. Okay. Listen to them. How can I help you? That's the question you need to keep asking. Servant leadership, that's got to be your lifeline. What can I do for you? Listen, and listen. And build that into your cybersecurity narrative, into your security strategy. Construct with the stakeholders, co-construct, and then focus the rest of the time. That's the next 6 months, so to speak, the third 6 in building an execution framework. How are you going to make it happen? It's not so much about what needs to be done, but how is it going to be done? In many ways, the what of change, if you want, around cybersecurity is written in Cybersecurity Good Practice. It's been developing for the best part of the last 30 years. You know what needs to be done. As a cybersecurity professional, you will see it straight away. You will see where the weaknesses are. But how is it going to happen? Why is it that it hasn't been done in the past? Understanding where the roadblocks are that have prevented progress. That's what will make the CISO successful. And that builds up around the first 100 days in that 666 type of logic. The first 100 days are not about demonstrating what you can do as a professional, what you can do as a cybersecurity specialist. You've been hired. Competence is assumed. Okay. You've got to showcase yourself as a leader, as a person who can think strategically at the same level as the stakeholders around you. And that's something you're going to build by listening to them, by acting as their peer, and by bringing something to them in line with what they expect. And that's what I say in the book, really. That's what the first 100 days is all about. It applies to a variety of C-level jobs. I agree with that. But cybersecurity makes it even more essential because of its nature. Because it's not a technology problem or just a technology problem.
Excellent point here. When we talk about the technology problem here, often CISOs say, look, as soon as I step into the role, I often hear one department showing up from the very beginning, and that's compliance. So everything we do is, okay, we have this ending up in compliance. And now we do this, and this is going to be compliance. And so we have rules. And as we all know, no one is going to work in the morning and say, my best moment today is going to be when the compliance department shows up. So how can you move? And you described this very well in the book. How can you move from the whole compliance aspect, which is important, no question about that, but to real value creation as the last question of this interview today?
You see, this is an interesting question. I'm sad it's the last question, but we may come back to that. But I'm going to say, to me, the risk and compliance angle is very much something that reflects back to the first decade of the century, where many cybersecurity practices are rooted. I hear different stories from top execs, to be honest. I hear different stories. When I talk to CIOs in particular, when I talk to board members, they know about cyber. Compliance is there, but as a byproduct of good practice, if you want, as a byproduct of protecting the business, as a byproduct of implementing a genuine resilient practice. Top execs know that it's a matter of when, not if. That paradigm has taken roots in boardrooms. Okay, we've seen too many cyber attacks. Don't tell me that there is anybody in any boardroom anywhere in the world that doesn't know about cyber. I would not believe it. Okay, the problems are elsewhere. The problems are rooted in execution. You know, I've spoken to many CIOs who've told me I could put any money I like in my budget on cyber. Okay, but then what do?
Yeah.
How do I get it done? How do I deliver? So the challenge is execution. And that's the how of change. Not so much the what of change, but the how. And to some extent, the who is going to do what. So
I think these are the perfect final words.
Governance and accountability.
Yeah, okay. I think these are the perfect final words for these podcasts. When people now say, hey, I think JC can be really helpful for our business, maybe we should get him in either as a keynote speaker for the conference or as a consultant for our business, how can people get in touch?
CorixPartners.com. All my details are on the contact page. They can find me on Twitter at Corix_JC. They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm reasonably easy to find, I think, but CorixPartners.com for more details about what we do, and then LinkedIn or Twitter if you want to reach out.
Perfect. CISO, the first 100 days matter, and JC Gaillard knows how to do it. JC, thank you very much for your time.
Many thanks for having me on the podcast. Thank you.